Well, hello everyone. It's so nice to see everybody here today on this lovely Sunday afternoon. We're getting towards the end of the festival here, and I hope you all enjoyed it so far and that this will be a great one as well. So it's lovely to meet you, Liz, again. We only met virtually before, so this is the first time in person. So we were going to kick it off by, you were going to give us a little flavour of your writing.
I'll do a little reading from Our Little Cruelties, but I also wanted to say you actually emailed me the other day and said, do you have any connection to Kilmore, Quay? And I said no. And it was only when I was coming into town that I remembered that Lying in Wait, my second book, my editor absolutely hated the first draft. And so I came here and rewrote 75% of that book in the apartments right behind here, where the doors were falling off. And but so I got to see a bit. And I think we were here for 3 weeks, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So I do have a little bit of Kilmore.
Well, you certainly do.
Kilmore Quay experience.
We'll take that, won't we?
I lived out of the chipper. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit from the prologue of Our Little Cruelties, which is the most recent one, which came out in 2020, just as the bookshops closed for the lockdown. All three of the Drum brothers were at the funeral, although one of us was in the coffin. 3 is an odd number, so there had always been 2 against 1, although we all switched sides regularly. Nobody would ever have described us as close. As the service began, I became tearful. My living brother and I stood side by side at the top of the crematorium while people lied to us about what a brilliant man our brother had been. All the usual meaningless cliches. His death was sudden, horrific. The investigation was quick and conclusive. I was not a suspect. I had a sense of freedom and relief I hadn't felt in quite a while. I didn't expect that this air of serenity would last, but I thought I would enjoy it while I could. My surviving brother was unreadable to me. Maybe he was thinking of our brother's smashed and broken body. Still, even he must have known that this outcome was for the best.
I think it's fair to say that you usually start your books with, a lot of books kind of have cliffhangers, but I think your books usually kind of start with a cliffhanger, which is a really good way of drawing everybody in.
Well, I guess I try to hook the reader with the first line and also give them a sense of who this character is, or, a sense of what kind of dynamic is going on.
Yeah.
Because you can tell from that reading that this is not a nice guy we're dealing with. Yeah. And it's the same with all of the books, in fact. As a special treat, you are going to get, at the end of this, I'm going to read from Strange Sally Diamond, which I've never read from before. So you are getting the premiere of the opening lines of Strange Sally Diamond. And that one is a little different, but we'll see what you think.
Okay.
You can decide whether I get thumbs up or thumbs down, because nobody has seen it yet, really. So. Oh
wow, that'd be really interesting. Yeah. I look forward to that. We were talking before there, and you do have a knack for the dark side, Liz. You grew up in Donnybrook in Dublin. Was it always with you, this sort of fascination with the darker side of life for people?
I wouldn't have thought so. Like a lot of sort of, I don't know, I had a lot of ill health. I had a brain hemorrhage when I was 6 or 7 years old and spent a lot of time in a hospital. So I suppose those were dark times. Then my parents separated around the same time, so maybe that influenced it. But I think, to be honest, I think a lot of the influences came from other books, from other writers and from TV shows. I mean, I know I prefer to watching The Sopranos to watching The Waltons, you know. And I'm very much attracted to bad men in fiction.
Yeah, okay, clarify that, yes.
My husband's over there, lovely man. Yeah, I don't really know. It's a question I'm always asked, and I never have the full answer for it, because I don't know, you can only write what you can write. And I didn't know, when I wrote Unravelling Oliver, the first one, and it was published, the publishers didn't have it in the crime categories on the shelves. It was only when it won the Crime Novel of the Year award that I knew I was a crime novelist.
Yeah.
It hadn't occurred to me before,
Yeah.
because I just wrote the book that was in me. I didn't think about genre. I didn't set out to write a crime novel, but lots of terrible, unkind, and unhappy things happened in those books. Lots of crimes happened in those books, in that book. So. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, I think Unravelling Oliver sort of broke the mould a little bit for a lot of books, and it was probably a bit hard to categorise it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I stole that from another Wexford man. I stole that from John Banville. Anybody who's read the Book of Evidence knows that it opens in a prison with the man who has done a terrible thing, and it was based on the Malcolm MacArthur story, if you remember that. And so that's how I opened my book. Now, then our stories diverged completely. But he was the inspiration for Unravelling Oliver, because I was a stage manager for many, many years working in theatre, and I was the stage manager when during the Kilkenny Arts Festival, when we did a staged adaptation of the Book of Evidence. And because we were going over and over the text so much, I just kind of thought, God, if I ever write a book, I'm going to write it about a man as flawed as this guy, as Freddie Montgomery. Yeah. So, yeah, I credit a Wexford man with
the inspiration.
With the inspiration. I'm finding lots of links here now.
You see, you need to come back more often, you see, or, you know. We were talking, and we were just saying about how you left school at 17 and you went straight to London, really, from then, which was quite kind of a brave thing to do, or
kind of brave and stupid and no alternative. I mean, I came out of school in 1985 and then again in 1986, because I had to repeat the Leaving Cert, to no avail. Didn't do any better the second time round. And there wasn't anything I wanted to do in college except for drama and theatrical studies, which was a new course that only Trinity did at the time. And the competition was fierce. Yeah, they only took 15 people a year, and I got down to the last 50. Yeah. And as it happened, I wouldn't have got the points anyway to get into it, because I was a total mess in school. So, yeah, I took off to London. There were no jobs in Ireland. Yeah. Absolutely no jobs. I mean, you almost had to have a degree to work in McDonald's. There was nothing for it but to go to London. And really, in London, shamefully, at the time, I hope it's better now as regards racism, but if you were white and literate, you could get a job, an office job. So I worked in, obviously I did lots of waitressing first. Actually, I didn't do waitressing because I've got a bad leg, so I can't really carry trays and walk at the same time. So I was like doing kitchen work in restaurants. And then I got kind of office junior jobs doing, photocopying and filing and that kind of thing. And I worked in a hospital medical records office handing out death certificates.
Oh, lovely.
I worked in a dole office, which was very useful when I came to write Lying in Wait. I worked in a construction company. I worked lots of kind of different jobs in admin roles. Mm-hmm. And then I had a serious accident and ended up coming home on a stretcher and then spending a year more or less in hospital. Okay. And came out of there thinking, like, what do I really want to do with my life? Writing still wasn't on the radar at all, and I decided I'm going to be an actress. So off I went and limped into the Gaiety School of Acting and did a 9-week course in the Gaiety School of Acting. And really, there was only one role in drama for a girl with a limp, and that's Laura in The Glass Menagerie. And there was no productions of that happening that year. And even if there was, I had no experience and probably wouldn't have been chosen anyway. But what I did learn through that course was how much I loved the text and the structure of plays. And I'm fascinated to know that you're a playwright. I didn't know that before the introduction, so I'll be talking to you afterwards about that. So, yeah, theatre was my kind of introduction into the world of literature, although I'd always been a reader.
Yeah.
But to make stuff visual. And so all of my books, I try and put as much visual incident in them.
Okay,
I remember
yeah.
reading, I don't know if any of you have read Wally Lamb. She's Come Undone, and I know this much is true. Like, every couple of pages you're going, oh my God, because so much happens. They're so chock full of incident.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted my books to be. I wanted them to be full of incident, full of things happening all the time.
Yeah.
And that the protagonist would cause these things to happen
to
rather
propel
than
it
be
along. Yeah.
too passive about it.
Yeah. You were saying to me when we were talking to, which I thought was quite interesting, that as a stage manager, you got to kind of be in the room while a lot of rehearsals were going on, and you got a really good flavour of editing and how things, were structured from doing that, which must have been really helpful in going forward and writing yourself. Did you?
Yeah, you'd think so, but then I got a commission to write a play, and I'm useless at it, as it turns out. And I'm also at the moment struggling with writing an episode of a TV drama for the BBC. Turns out I'm useless at that as well. So you would think that working as a stage manager, being backstage for 10 or 15 years in a career, would make you, at least give you a bit of a head start on how to write a play. But I think it's like when you're a kid and your mother drives you everywhere, it doesn't automatically mean that you pick up driving. It's not something that happens by osmosis. You still actually have to take lessons and learn.
Work at it.
So, yeah.
But you did some writing for Fair City as well, Liz, did you?
I didn't really. I did and I didn't. I unofficially, because I was a staff member, I was not officially allowed to write for the show, because the people who were writing for the show were all freelancers, and I was a staff member of RT. So officially I couldn't do it, but I slid a couple of stories in there under the radar, but it became a huge point of frustration for me, in fact, that I wasn't allowed to write, and I had so many ideas for the show, and I wasn't. There was kind of a change of regime halfway through the almost 11 years. I think it was 11 years that I stayed in that job, which meant that I wasn't even allowed to pitch stories. I wasn't allowed to offer story ideas, and that just became so unbearable to me.
Very frustrating, I'd say.
But in fact, it probably wasn't a bad thing, because I wasn't allowed to write stories for them, I began to write stories for me. And the first chapter of Unravelling Oliver was a short story that I entered into the Francis McManus competition and didn't get placed, but I got shortlisted.
Yeah.
And because of that, if I hadn't written that short story, I would never have developed that into a novel. Yeah. If that novel hadn't been published, I would never have written another one. And I certainly wouldn't have a career like now where I can actually write full time. So I have to thank that miserable
frustration
11 years Fair City, which really was the worst job in the world.
Oh, God.
I know people. I feel bad saying that because I know a lot of people would kill for a job in RT, and it sounds terribly glamorous, but I found it.
Sometimes big
frustrating.
organisations like that are very rigid in hierarchy and stuff,
Yeah.
aren't they? And it's kind of
The
hard.
bigger the organisation, the more bad people can get away with it.
Yeah, and speaking of hierarchies and big organisations, you toured with Riverdance
I did,
as tour manager as well. That must be really interesting.
It was, that I had done 10 years and I'd done, I can't remember, over 10 years in theatre as a stage manager. And this is long before Fair City. And a job came up on Riverdance, and you got to see the world, like really. I mean, we toured North America, the United States and Canada for 2 years, and we were like the C team, the A tour. There were 3 tours at the time, and the A tour did arenas and stadiums, and the B tour did, massive concert halls, and the C team did the smaller venues like theatres. So we were very much reduced size, but it meant that we got to the smaller, interesting cities.
Yeah.
So we got to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Greensboro, North Carolina, and Greenville, South Carolina, places that, that are not on any tourist map. While the other shows got the glamorous ones. They got Chicago and LA and Boston and New York. But I ended up, I left at the end of 1999, just as the new millennium began. And then in March or end of February 2000, they pulled me back in for one last job. And it was because the Broadway show, they had opened a new show on Broadway, and they had rejigged the show, so there was a few more performances, a few more acts within the show. And I ended up working on that because the stage manager they had at the time, her visa hadn't come through, her work visa hadn't come through. And America is very tight on, visas and working and IATSEs and the unions, and if the unions knew that she didn't have a visa, they could walk off the show and we would have no technical people. And so I ended up going back to Broadway to do Riverdance in February of 2000, and that's where I met my husband.
Wow, okay. So.
Because he had been hired by Bill Whelan to come and work on the technical sound side of the show. Okay. So, it was...
That was so random, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely serendipitous, because neither of us were supposed to be there, and yet we both ended up
when you look.
In New York at the same time.
And I can't help thinking, even apart from just talking here now about, between all the jobs in London and all the places you saw, there's just great material there for books for going forward of things to see. Or were you very caught up on Riverdance? Did you get to see a lot of the places you visited, or was it very
to be honest,
work?
when I'm talking about Chattanooga, Tennessee, I'll go, oh yeah, that's the place that, despite the song, has no train station.
Oh.
And it does have a tow truck museum.
Oh, there's a recommendation for anyone now if you're in Tennessee not to be missed.
And apart from that, I can remember the lobby of the hotel and the dressing rooms in the venue. Like we would do 8 shows a week and then move to a different city. Oh, yeah. So there wasn't a lot of time off. We had only if we were sitting down in a city or a town for 2 weeks, we would have the second Monday off.
Oh, okay. That was pretty intense going then, yeah.
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 It was tough work, but God, rewarding. I got a husband out of it.
Yeah, well, this was worth it in the end.
Yeah. And I have to say, I love the show. I not just because of Richard, but I think that the show itself, the music in particular, I'm like Enda Kenny. It makes me cry.
Yeah, I kind of fill up every time I hear it as well. It's a funny thing. It's very emotional.
Yeah, and the track that they use in the radio ad all the time is not my favourite bit. There's so many other elements to the show. There's flamenco dancing, there's American jazz, and there's Russian folk music, and all kinds of other stuff, all written by Bill Whelan.
Wow.
And the music is just, I still love it.
Yeah, gosh, it must have been a fantastic thing to be involved in, really. You know,
I hate Irish dancing, though.
I'm just looking, though, you did win first prize for a TV pilot. We're going forward again, guys, to post kind of Fair City Time, are we?
Well, I won, there was I have to tell the truth about this. There was a competition that I found on the internet, sponsored by the European Broadcasting Union, and your employer had to be a member of a certain cohort of European television stations in order to enter. And I looked it up, and this is while I was working in RT, and RT was one of those things. But so I entered the competition, and nobody else from Ireland entered because it was a secret competition. Nobody knew about it. So I won the Irish category.
You're being too honest here, Liz, now altogether.
Nobody else entered. So yeah, I won. The competition was for the pilot episode of a TV drama, and so I wrote the pilot episode, and it was about a mother and daughter going to university at the same time. The mother is going back to college, and her spoilt brat daughter is going to college at the same time. So it was a laugh a minute. It was called Campus. It went nowhere. Nobody was interested. It never got made, and it never will. And it's somewhere on a floppy disk, and will probably never see the light of day.
Wow. And then, of course, coming on from that then was Unravelling Oliver then, was the first book.
It was the first book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you find that difficult to write, Liz? Did it come fairly easily, or did you...
I stopped and started it over a number of years. I mean, if you think about it, that short story was shortlisted in the Francis McManus Award, I think, in 2006.
Yeah.
And the book didn't come out until 2014.
Yeah, okay.
So it was probably 2 years after I wrote the short story that I started to write the book. And then I wrote 3 chapters very quickly, and then probably nothing for 4 years. Okay. And then I just kind of thought, I was really hating Fair City so much at this stage. I just thought, I've got to get out. I've got to find an escape plan. Yeah. And I thought, if I could just sit down and write this book. So I applied to the Tyrone Guthrie Centre to see if I could go there. It's an artist's retreat in County Monaghan, and it's relatively cheap to stay in, but you get like a beautiful room with a beautiful desk, and you get all your meals included, and it's relatively cheap, and you can stay there and just work. Just dedicate yourself to your work. And there's nothing much else to do around there except to go for walks in the beautiful surroundings. New Bliss, the village, is too far away to walk. So, it's you and your laptop and the work. So I eventually ended up there after many years and started applying myself to the book, and wrote it then over the course of the next 4 years. And I think I got an agent in 2011. I got a book deal in 2012, and then it was 2014 before it came out. Okay. So it had a very, very long gestation period. Yeah. But I had a lot of experiences throughout those years that added to that book. I can imagine, I mean, if I had written it immediately after winning the prize, there wouldn't have been those scenes in the chateau in France, because I had that experience of staying in the chateau in France in between times. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of experience.
You drew in a lot
under
of
my belt over
yeah.
those years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've kind of been one every 2 years now, kind of. Have you, Lying in Wait was 2016?
Yeah, there was one every 2 years up until the next one. The next one should have come out this year, but I had a bad time over the 2019 into 2020. I had another accident. Oh. I tripped and fell, and I dislocated my kneecap and smashed my tibia and patella, and ended up in hospital. And because of the brain hemorrhage I had when I was a child, I have this condition called dystonia, which means I can't really withstand any operation, because my entire right-hand side would go into spasm. Oh my God, so okay. I just had to sit and wait for the bones to knit. So it meant 3 months in hospital and very heavy doses of medication. And even when I came out of hospital, I was quite a zombie for quite a long time. So I was out of action as regards writing for really the best part of a year. And I came out of hospital just in time for COVID as well. So, and my dad died that year as well. So I think there's a lot of things that, a lot of excuses for me not to write, shall we say. But I kind of nailed myself to the chair then at the beginning of 2021, hoping that I could get the book out in this year. But I was too slow. Yeah. And unfortunately there was kind of circumstances where I was going on holiday and my editor was going on holiday. But I have to say the extra time definitely made it a better book, because I had more time to develop the characters and to revisit them and really go deeper with them in this next book. Yeah. So I'm glad now. Yeah,
but you probably needed some time to kind of process things and come out of
a lot of
situations,
physical pain and emotional pain and stress and drama.
Yeah, gosh. This is probably not. No, I don't know if this is really a fair question, but do you have a favourite of the novels that you've written so far, or is there anyone
that's like asking me
who's
my favourite child? Yeah, because they are my children. I don't have children, so I see my books as my children. Yeah. But
or one you're most proud of, or
I think of the ones that are published, I'm actually most proud of the one that's coming out shortly, because I wrote it despite a lot of things. Yeah. But my favourite of the ones I've written is probably Skin Deep, and I think that's because it sold the least.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, yeah. So it's the neglected child. And I kind of played with form a bit with that one. I made up some mythology for that book, which I thought would fly, but funny enough, my American publishers rejected the book on account of it being too dark. And then they elected Donald Trump. I don't know what's going on. It's a strange country. But
too much dark in reality, so they didn't want it in fiction, probably.
Maybe. But and it didn't get any translation deals. Like, I'm translating to, at last count, I think 20 languages. Right. I include American in that because they do change things and not just words. But nobody picked that book up for translation, and I feel sorry for it.
Oh, poor thing.
Poor Skin Deep.
Poor Skin Deep. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's just crap. I don't know.
And I suppose Unravelling Oliver is the eldest child.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so good, and now you just made the way for everyone else then to come along after. And
Unravelling Oliver is very confident.
Right, yeah.
The book, I mean.
Yeah. Have you any sort of advice for writers? General advice?
Oh, well, obviously read. You have to be a reader in order to be a writer. Never send your first draft. Never submit your first draft to anybody. And I would suggest getting somebody to read it who isn't like your husband or your mother or your...
But like the X Factor.
Yeah. Get somebody who you know who is a reader of the genre you're writing in, I suppose. And if they give you feedback, act on it. Okay. Don't ignore it. Don't assume that you know better, because your reader, the person you give the manuscript to, will tell you the truth. And ask them to be brutal. Ask them not to spare your blushes, because, you know, there's no point in asking for feedback if you're going to ignore it, if it's not good. Yeah. So, that makes sense. Yeah. And what are your own influences, or who do you like to read yourself? I'm a real mixed bag when it comes to reading. I love Marion Keyes as much as I love John Banville. I love Cat Hogan. I love Owen Colfer. Owen Colfer's a last adult book for adults. Did I just say that? Sorry, am I confused? His last book for adults called High Fire was about a bourbon drinking dragon in the bayou in Louisiana, and it was a laugh a second. So I will read bits of everything, but I never thought I would enjoy a book about a dragon. Yeah. But, see, another Wexford man. And when it comes to crime, I love Jane Casey's police procedurals. Sinead Crowley has written an excellent novel called The Belladonna Maze. She did write 3 police procedurals, but she's kind of changed tack now, and this is more of a kind of mystery, romance, ghosts, and I really enjoyed that. Of more recent novels, there's a Black American writer called S.A. Cosby, and he's written 2 incredible books called Blacktop Wasteland and Razorblade Tears. They're not for the faint-hearted, so, you know, if you don't like violence, stay away from those books. They're pretty hardcore violent, but they're brilliant stories. Like, he's an amazing, amazing storyteller. Who else? God, there's so many, so many. And you kind of did touch on John Banville being a slight influence to begin with. Is there anybody else that influenced you, or that you read and said, oh gosh, I wish I could write like that? Or there is, and I was sort of annoyed that they're all middle-aged, middle-class white men, but they are. Sebastian Fox wrote a book called Engelby. That was a huge influence as well. Again, about a very flawed man doing terrible things. John Fowles wrote a book called The Collector. I think it was published in the 1960s, about a man who kidnapped a woman. William Boyd, Any Human Heart. Sebastian Barry, pretty much everything he writes, I love it. It's kind of shamefully, they're all middle-aged, middle-class white men. But, you know, Sean S.A. Cosby, the Black American writer who came from a dirt poor background and is going on now, I think he's going to be I think he's going to be the new kind of Stephen King.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
about
haven't
time
read
we had a
anything
black
by
Stephen
him now.
King.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. So, yeah. And women writers, Nadine Matheson and Oyinkan Braithwaite and Jasmine Ward and lots of... I read widely. I read about everything.
Yeah. I think it's probably when you write, you do need to read widely, really, to it just helps you see how other people write and absorb things, and kind of can give you a little bit of inspiration and see how other people handle certain.
If you're going to be inspired by the best people in
Yeah.
the genre, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I have a Val McDermott quote here, which is sort of going back a bit on, I suppose, the darkness of your characters, Liz. And it says that Liz Nugent has a gift for filling us with a terrible fascination for truly horrible people. So the new book is a little departure from that, is it?
It is. The protagonist is somebody you will like.
Okay.
Even though she incinerates her father in the first chapter, spoiler alert, but she even though she does that, I think you will go with her. I think you will really like her.
Okay.
She's different, but she has no sort of diagnosis as such. She's just a bit odd. She's out there on her own.
Okay.
And there are reasons why,
Okay.
which you'll discover when you read the full book. But it's the first time I've written a likeable protagonist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, just when you're talking about the likeable protagonists, I'm thinking of Our Little Cruelties,
Oh, the
which
three
had
awful
three
men.
horrible.
Yeah. They're desperate.
Yeah. So, how did you dream up those three horrible brothers?
Well, they were kind of each
There
inspired.
were certain likabilities in some of them, and then you did it so well because this, you kind of.
Well, I think
went-
Luke is the most sympathetic
Yeah,
one
yeah.
because he has mental health issues, and he is a victim of those mental health issues. But I wonder, and I don't answer this question in the novel, but I wonder, would he have had those mental health difficulties if he had a different maternal relationship with his mother? I don't know. Was it nature or nurture that made him the way he was? I don't know. Will, the misogynistic film producer, you might think is based on Harvey Weinstein, but it's actually somebody much closer to home. I worked for somebody who is very much like that, who is now retired from his job, thank God. But when I worked in theatre, I worked for a theatre producer who was very much like that. So, based on him. And then when I got to Brian, he's not particularly based on anybody except maybe a touch of an ex-boyfriend who was incredibly stingy.
I kind of wondered, was the stinginess someone you knew with him?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I
that
remember
relationship
when
didn't
it was
go anywhere.
his birthday, I bought him I was earning less than him, but when it was his birthday, I bought him like a pair of trousers and a jacket and a couple of CDs and whatever. And when it was my birthday, he bought me a mug, and that kind of says it all.
Oh, God,
What a mug!
Yeah.
Not that the relationship is all about transaction or whatever, but
No.
he was mean in every way.
Yeah.
And he used to, and I put it in the book actually, he used to, he never wanted to spend money in restaurants. So he used to invite me to his mother's house for dinner every Sunday. And I worked in theatre, so I worked 6 nights a week. So I wasn't able to go out for dinner at any other night. But they had a family dinner at his mother's on a Sunday. So I ended up going to his mother's every every week when I had a night off, I would end up in his mother's house with his entire family. And the only time I got him to break that rule and come out to have dinner and see a gig with me in Whelan's was when I said I'd pay. And he said, okay.
Stop. So you can kind of slyly get your own back on these people a little bit sometimes, can't you?
I'm not naming names. But yeah, I bet if he read that book, I bet he wouldn't recognise himself.
Yeah.
People rarely do.
Yeah, I remember reading that. I think it was Claire Boylan said it years ago, and I did wonder. She said, people never realise it's them you're talking about. I suppose that maybe people have a completely different idea of what they're like themselves.
Yeah, people have an idealised version of themselves. But I suppose I do too. I could well be in some books as the monstrous writer with a massive ego or something. I don't know. God, I hope not.
Will we? Have you got a little piece to read out of Sally Diamond first?
It's the premiere now. You guys are very lucky. Nobody else has heard this. Did I bring it? Yes, I did.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about the book, or
no?
You're going okay.
No, I'll tell you what it says. The blurb for the book is: reclusive Sally Diamond causes outrage by trying to incinerate her dead father. Now she's the centre of attention, not only from the hungry media and police detectives, but also a sinister voice from a past she does not remember. As she begins to discover the horrors of her early childhood, Sally steps into the world for the first time, making new friends and big decisions and learning that people don't always mean what they say. But who is the man observing Sally from the other side of the world? And why does he call her Mary? And why does her new neighbour seem to be obsessed with her? Sally's trust issues are about to be severely challenged. Okay, so I'll just read from the very opening. You're getting 5 lines. Put me out with the bins, he said regularly. When I die, put me out with the bins. I'll be dead, so I won't know any different, and you'll be crying your eyes out. And he would laugh, and I would laugh too, because we both knew that I wouldn't be crying my eyes out. I never cry.
Oh, very good. Where is it set, Liz?
I decided to make Roscommon Noir.
Oh, right, brilliant.
A thing. Because I was so inspired by the Belladonna Maid's, Sinead Crowley's book set in Roscommon. I just thought, there's very few books set in Roscommon. So it's set in Roscommon and New Zealand.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Because I went to New Zealand on a tour, a book tour, kind of a self-funded book tour, and I had to write it off for the taxman as a business expense, so I put it in the book.
Getting all the tips and hints here, guys.
But it's in the book for specific reasons as well.
Yeah.
Because I was very kindly invited to a festival in New Zealand in 2019, actually just before I had that accident. So I was very lucky that I got to go there before that happened. So yes, I took part in a festival with Val McDermott and Adrian McKinty. And there is a centre for Celtic Studies in the University of Otago, the bottom of the South Island in Dunedin. And they invited me to take part in that with other Celtic writers. And it's headed up by Liam McIlvanney, who is the son of William McIlvanney, both crime writers, but William McIlvanney would have been, before Ian Rankin came along, and Val McDermott, William McIlvanney would have been the most famous Scottish crime writer, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, there's a little Celtic corner, and it's not called Dunedin for nothing. Dunedin, the town, is based on Edinburgh and is built almost like Edinburgh.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, there's very Scottish Presbyterian vibe
Okay. Wow.
to the city. All the pubs shut at about 9 o'clock.
Gosh.
But it's a lovely place, and I got such a great welcome there. I felt I owed them.
To mention in
I
the
put
novel,
New Zealand in the book.
Yeah.
But it's pretty sinister what happens in New Zealand in the book.
Okay. And when is it coming out again then, did you
March
say?
the 2nd.
March the 2nd, okay. Well, we'll all look forward to that, Liz. Fantastic. It's nice to get a little preview of it as well. Thanks very much, Liz. It was lovely to talk to you today. And hope you enjoy the rest of your visit down here in Kilmore Quay now as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank
it was
you.
lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.